I have made many videos on the subject of codependency, appeasing, people pleasing, and healing within all of that. This video that I'm doing now has a lot to do with all of that, specifically because it deals with facing the dark side of emotional containing. Before I explore facing the dark side of emotional containing, I'll kind of like look more at the dynamic as to what it is that like brings a person to end up being an emotional container. Now, this is not cookie cutter, one size fits all at all. These things can happen for different reasons, but I'm going to explore my own experiences because I think that it will be very beneficial to kind of like provide insight as to how these dynamics work. I've experienced a lot of codependency in my life, meaning I have been codependent. I have appeased, I've people pleased, I've been inauthentic, I've done things that I haven't wanted to do simply because I was afraid of being alone. But I want to look at the root here. I want to look at the core of all of this stuff and really like a majority of what it is that it deals with. Empathic, right? We look at empathic tendencies. We look at empathic, just skills, right? What does it mean to be empathic? From what I've learned, from what I understand, what it means to be empathic is to be highly attuned to people's energies, people's emotions. And I actually just realized this about myself the other day. I've noticed that some people, they're completely fucking oblivious to their environment whenever they go somewhere, right? Me, I'm looking everywhere. I'm highly attuned. I'm so totally highly attuned. And this can actually be very beneficial, especially if there is potentially a threat in the environment. Being aware of everyone in your environment, not to tune into them, not to make sure that they're okay, but more so to make sure that they will not be a threat to you, right? I understand people have said like, oh, don't judge a book by its cover. We need a certain level of judgment to be able to tell whether or not people in our environment are safe or not, right? Because there are going to be people in an environment that people go into that are not safe. And that's just the reality of it. And there's nothing good or bad about that. There's nothing, it's a matter of healthy versus unhealthy, right? And if you are not able to, attune to that, there's a plane overhead. If you're not able to attune to that and really understand what's going on, that can really fuck up a lot of things. Codependency, people pleasing, appeasing. Usually what this has to do with is kind of like, I'll say that I think that there are two different ways that this can go about. But the emotional side of things is what I'm going to get at here, and that's specifically in parentification. When a child is told age inappropriate material, right? Think about it, their small minds are basically ripped open, right? And when I say small minds, I'm not trying to insult or offend children. They have minds that are underdeveloped and they're not ready to take on age inappropriate adult material. That's just the way that it is. And so when they get sucked into that universe, they kind of learn to be the emotional container, right? And that's what I've learned about kind of like, ending up learning to be the emotional container, being empathic and all that kind of stuff. And so this is usually, from what I've learned and understand, the route of codependents, people pleasers, appeasers, empaths, and all that stuff. And now, let me just make it very clear that therapists in a professional setting, they utilize the skill of being an emotional container, right? Because they know how to turn it on, they know how to turn it off, right? They're not just going to give anybody life advice and dive deep into their psyche, right? They're going to be paid for it. It's going to be in a professional setting. They're utilizing a skill to be highly attuned to people, right? All the while having a universe of knowledge and information as to how they can help that person. obviously. I mean, that's just how therapy works, right? But, and I've been here before, there are people outside of a professional therapy session, or outside of a professional therapy setting, there we go, and session, of course, they emotionally contain people. And I've been there. I've done that. And of course, in therapy, people struggle because being an emotional container is challenging. There is a dark side to it, right? And this has a lot to do, or everything to do, with boundaries. Healthy boundaries, permeable boundaries, a lack thereof altogether. When you are entering into somebody's universe, you might unknowingly say something to them that could trigger them, right? I've been there before. I've literally been called probably every fucking name in the book, right? All the while, whatever they have to say has nothing to do with me, of course. But when you face the dark side of emotional containing, it's challenging. One, because, well, first, the question is to ask the self, and I've asked myself this before, why the fuck are you containing somebody's emotions? And I don't mean that in the sense of trying to be like rude or be like, what the fuck are you doing? Just genuinely asking yourself, if you're not a licensed therapist, why are you containing somebody's emotions? Why are you holding the fucking bucket? Why are you holding the the strainer that you would pour the spaghetti out in, right? Why are you holding that so that somebody else can vomit their fucking horrors into it and potentially throw some of that shit at you? That's the dark side of emotional containing, right? And I've been there before. I've literally just fucking found myself in impromptu therapy sessions, obviously not in a professional setting because I'm not a licensed mental health professional, right? I do have certifications, and they are wonderful, and they do help me explore subjects that are things that I'm passionate about. They help me offer advice to other people. But previously, I used to do this stuff for free. I used to just impromptu, on point, just be somebody's emotional container. Now, I don't want to do that anymore. The challenge is that it's like people can fucking smell it on me. I noticed, like, I simply ask somebody how they're doing. No, I'm not trying to hear about your fucked up, charred childhood. I'm not trying to hear about how your mother's a fucking piece of shit narcissist that you haven't talked to in 10 fucking years. I'm not trying to hear about that. No. And so there is a dark side of emotional containing, and depending on how good and healthy a person's boundaries are, and especially and specifically if they are in a professional setting, as a licensed professional, they can handle it much better. But I'm just going to say that I've been the emotional container for people, not naming any names. It's not fun. If you're not being paid for it, it's not a good gig. I've seen many other people do it, and listen, I'm gonna say it. Anybody and everybody can do whatever the fuck they want to. It's up to them, right? But really, what this video is about is me reflecting on decades of my life where I have been the emotional container for many people, and just kind of me recognizing my readiness to resign from it outside of a professional setting. Like, if I were to be the emotional container in a professional setting, that'd be a different story. This video is more so just a matter of, like, being informative, as well as kind of just like a reality check for myself. Just like recognizing, like, yeah, being the emotional container is fucking wild. In a licensed professional setting, sure, go ahead. Outside of that, I would seriously ask myself why I'm doing that. And here's the thing that I've noticed recently. I'll end off with this. Previously, I used to believe that I was just, that's who I am. That's what I'm meant to do, right? And I'm not going to go into the logistics of what it is that, you know, kind of like molded me into that way. But I just, you know, it's like people have a lot of shit, right? And they're very comfortable with telling other people that fit that puzzle piece of being their emotional container without being in a professional setting about their shit, right? And it's just, to me, it seems very disorganized. Again, I'm not here to tell people what to do. You can do whatever you want to do. But it's like, sure, maybe you're looking to connect with somebody, but where are the boundaries? What are they going to be taking on by you telling them that? You know, I've really been looking at boundaries a lot lately, and I've just been realizing that, you know, some of the relationships in my life have severely lacked healthy boundaries, and, you know, people have just fucking unloaded shit on me. And again, unless it's in a professional setting, I don't need that. I'm looking for my own inner peace now. I'm looking for my own me-ness, right? And the other thing about this too is that the fascinating dynamic about all of this is that oftentimes relationship dynamics like this lack balance severely. And when I say that, I'm specifically referring to give and take balance. What I've noticed in my own relationships when this has taken place, as well as other relationships, more so in my relationships, is a lack of balance in terms of give and take. And I've made a video before this talking about how, you know, people just took and took and took and took and took from Chris, and Chris just continued to give and give and give and give and give because he thought that that was just his role in people's lives and relationships. And guess what? It's fucking not. It's not. It's really not. There's nothing wrong with listening to people, but again, it's not about right or wrong, good or bad, but it's very unhealthy to just subject yourself to other people's universes, especially if there are no healthy boundaries in place. If they see you as a therapist, be careful, you know? Ask yourself why you're listening to people. I'm doing a lot of that right now. A lot. Because I've listened to way too many people in the past tell me things that I didn't need to know and had nothing to do with me, and quite honestly, wasted my fucking time and energy. So I'm really asking myself who I'm listening to and why I'm listening to them. That's so important.